make sure you stay in good conversation, you gotta tune in to Coffee and Conversation with Collette, that's me, Thursday mornings from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the only station, WHPR TV 33. See you soon. If you want to make sure you stay in good conversation, you gotta tune in to Coffee and Conversation with Collette, that's me, Thursday mornings from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the only station, WHPR TV 33. See you soon. Conversation. And I just have to tell you that wherever we find you this morning, be encouraged, stay encouraged, because no matter what it is that you are going through, it will pass. And at the end of the day, I'm just so thankful. I'm going to pick up coffee. That's what we do. I can't have coffee by myself. So I bring in coffee for the team on my Thursday mornings. And I just have to tell you, in driving and it's dark, and I see young people walking, and I see elderly people walking, and sometimes you just need all of those little reminders to let you know thank you, to stay in a spirit of gratitude. Because for all of you all that are walking and without personal transportation, thoughts and prayers and safety to you. Those of us who have personal transportation, please be grateful. Just be grateful in all things. Just wake up in a spirit of gratitude, because I promise you, it changes your outlook. It will change how you look at things. It will change how you deal with people, how you interact with people, and then ultimately, it will change how they look at things and do things. I promise you that it will. And no matter what life situations are happening, because it's life, but it's how you deal with it. So I just wanted to tell us that this morning. That was just my personal little piece to you this morning, because I just felt that I needed to say it. And a lot of times you might not know where you're trying to go or what you think. Things might not be happening as quickly as you'd like them to. And maybe I'm just preaching to myself. You all know that I've always shared with you, it's about being transparent for me behind this microphone and in front of this camera. And so coming back into Detroit some 10 years ago now, it has always been a challenge for me here, because I have had experiences that, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, I don't want to offend any of us, that have exceeded what we're doing right now in the city. And so when you go someplace else and you're experiencing other things where people are a little bit more progressive in their government and in their policies and how they interact and how they get things done, when you come back into a city where you see all of the opportunities and people are not grasping them, and then people aren't receptive to you, it can be kind of daunting. It can kind of be like you're walking in your own personal wilderness. And I know that a lot of you feel the same way. I had a very great conversation this week, which I thought was going to end up being a 10, 15-minute conversation from someone who reached out to me to ask for some advice, and it turned into a 2-hour conversation. And she, like myself, is an entrepreneur, but has been here the whole time, has had very progressive thoughts and how she thinks things should be, and she finds herself in a space of isolation. And so in me speaking encouragement into her and explaining to her what I had to do along my journey, it was also speaking encouragement to me. And so I tell you all, and for all of you all who call in and we share the conversations that we have, and we share the ideologies that we have, and the opinions that we have, and the ideals that we have, always know that you can find safe haven with me. That we can always agree to disagree, but the ultimate is to make sure that if you are trying to get somewhere, I can help you get there. It is really that simple, and that you are not alone in your desire to walk into your purpose and to achieve greatness, however you define it. And so you have to know that in the midst of everything around you, certain things aren't for everybody, and everything isn't for everybody. Let me just say that. And so what is going to make you great might make you stand alone. The greatness that is being birthed in you might have to be birthed because you are isolated, the perception of isolation. And that doesn't mean that you're by yourself. You could be around lots of people. It could be your mindset that is isolated. It could be the way that you address doing things could be isolated, but just because everyone else doesn't look at it the same way. And so I wanted to share that with you. Because as we all are working to be better, we have to look at things a lot of times individually, because I can't be the best me and then expect to help us. So you have to start off with yourself. And then once you are true to who you are and understand what you can do and how you can do it or how you believe you can best do it, then we can start having the conversations. And we should be open to whatever that looks like. And so I'm going to lead us into the conversation today. We just experienced our State of the State address by Governor Snyder. This was his last address. He has about 11 more months in office, and he wanted to, again, as he always does, talk about what the state looks like. From how it was when he first got in, and then, of course, up until now. And he made some key areas that he wanted to focus on, and we're going to focus on those this morning. And I just wanted us to know, does that resonate with any of you? Did you even watch the State of the State? Because I haven't heard a lot of conversations about it. So I wanted to know, A, if you watched it. B, if you did, what did you think about it? C, if you didn't, why didn't you? And D, if you did, what was it that he missed? And if you could have your own State of the State address, if you could rebut what he said, if you could change or have a conversation, what would it look like? And I actually thought, and maybe that's just from a congressional perspective, but I thought that when these State of the State addresses are given, that the opposing party, the non-majority party, gives a response. Did that just happen for presidential? Because I was waiting for the Democrats to say what they thought was different or what it wasn't adequate in his assessment. But I didn't hear anything. Do you hear the echo? Do you hear the crickets? I haven't heard anything. And so I just want to know what, again, are we all just complacent? Is that no different than the government shutdown in Washington? And did you all ask yourselves, well, wait a minute, if the House is Republican and the Senate is Republican-led and the president is Republican, why are we in a shutdown? Because you all have the majority votes, and so why are we in a space of non-agreement? Because that should show you that there is dissension among the majority ruling party, which clearly has put the state and the nation in a stalemate. And so we are actually running around acting like we're moving towards something when we're really moving towards nothing. We're moving towards nothing. That's a really crazy statement that I just said, but don't you see like it's just busy work? Like we're just busy, but we're really not going anyplace. So we're busy from a national perspective with acting like we're meeting and acting like we're doing things and acting like we're having conversations and acting like we're made negotiations. So the Democrats gave President Trump his funding for the border. Isn't that ridiculous? And of course, our 13th congressional didn't have any representation there because we don't have a representative. Did you all think about any of that? Did you think about that when the government was talking about shutdowns? And did you think about how we don't have representation? Did anyone think about that? Or did you figure that it just wouldn't make a difference? I don't know. I'm asking. And so if they were just trying to figure it out there, then we come down to Michigan. Then we sit and say, okay, well, where are we going with this? What does it look like for us? And so the governor, he outlined his 6 areas. And so let me give those to you. His 6 areas were mobility, talent, education, infrastructure, fiscal responsibility, and civility. And I thought civility was really interesting. And you all know, if you watched the State of the State, he ended on civility. And it was the whole notion that how can we progress if we can't get along? If we're constantly fighting and battling each other? And of course, in the State of the State, he touted his best accomplishment, his most brightest star in all of it was the resurgence of Detroit. Did you all get that? He took credit for that. He did that. He did that. so much so that 10 years or so ago, people wouldn't want to even go to Detroit. Did you all catch that? You wouldn't even be in Detroit. And so I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, I mean, what do you mean? It wasn't bad to me. I was in Detroit. I'm downtown Detroit. It wasn't a problem. But that's the narrative that you shaped, and that's what you shared in your State of the State. And so now everyone is so ingratiated on this governor and this administration because downtown now is amazing because of you. That's what he wants us to believe. Let me give you the call-in numbers this morning if you don't have them. 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, or 313-868-4336. And what I'm going to do before we delve into the conversation, I'm going to give you a slight overview of the State of the State. We have a clip, so I just want to share it. It's about a couple-minute clip, and I want you, if you didn't see, then I want you to get an idea of it. If you did, this is going to kind of refresh your memory so we can have the conversation. So let's go to the clip, shall we?
Our top story at 10, Governor Snyder's State of the State address. The governor focusing on infrastructure, Michigan's economy, and better education for students.
They were just a few of the topics Rick Snyder highlighted during his final address before a packed audience at the state capitol.
7 Action News reporter Brian Abel joins us live from Lansing with more on the governor's message to the people of Michigan. Brian.
Yeah, he says, hey, the state of Michigan is good as being a businessman himself. He listed off some stats that says backs up those claims, including unemployment as well as improvements of home values and the resurgence of Detroit.
The governor of the state of Michigan, Rick Snyder.
For his 8th and final State of the State address, Governor Snyder pulling out Wall Street Journal props to push a tale of two states, 2010,
the state of joblessness,
and 2017.
the Michigan comeback story.
The governor credits the comeback to policies that help bring more people into the state than leaving for the first time in decades, and an average income growth per Michigander on the rise.
Number 1 for rate of growth in the Great Lakes states, again, number 6 in the entire nation. And to put it in perspective, that works out over $10,000 per Michigander in terms of the amount of increase in just 7 years.
Snyder spotlighting the rise of Detroit as another accomplishment.
Remember what Detroit was like 10 years ago, or you may not want to. The progress has been incredible, and it's been about all of us working together. If you look just this last year, the Little Caesars Arena opened. The skyline's going to be transformed. The tallest building between Chicago and New York is going to be going up on the former Hudson site. That's tremendous.
The governor turned to Flint, suggesting water tests show the crisis is contained.
With great water test results at 6 parts per billion. That's comparable to most other Michigan cities, so the water has improved dramatically. But we're continuing to work hard.
But some lawmakers at the Capitol tonight say the governor isn't sharing the whole story.
We're not telling the real story of Michigan, the real state of the state.
What is the real state of the state?
The real state of the state is we have fallen behind in our state.
We didn't hear that the unemployment rate, even though in the state is doing well, the unemployment rate still needs to get better in our largest city in the state.
We actually rank dead last in terms of ethics and accountability out of any other state.
Snyder, however, says despite ups and downs, reinvention was the goal, and he succeeded.
Overall, there's no question that Michigan is a far better state today than 2010.
Now, the governor still has 11 more months in office and an agenda to go with it. So coming up tonight at 11 on 7 Action News, what you can expect from Governor Snyder in 2018. Reporting live to the Capitol.
So there you have it. That was a little snippet from our news friends in local media. And you saw some of the Democrats at the end that said, well, no, he doesn't have it right. He doesn't have the whole story, that the governor doesn't have the whole story. He's not telling it all. And so one of the comments was, okay, well, unemployment is down, but it still needs to be better. And then one of the gentlemen said what? That we don't have a moral compass. We're last in morality as a state. And then what else? I mean, were you expecting a written rebuttal? Wouldn't you have expected that the Democratic Party would have gotten together and had a press conference to talk about what the major items were that the governor missed? Or did you expect it to be this kumbaya experience that you saw during the State of the State? You didn't see any dissension. I understand that everyone needs to get along for practical purposes and creating a narrative, but at some point, if you're saying that we're missing it, if you're saying that the governor isn't saying it all, then say what he's missing, because I really want to know. I personally wanted us to talk about, one of his points was education, okay? And I just think it's so interesting. Transportation and education. We've consistently known that we are behind the national curve as it pertains to public transportation. And we have been that way because we are the automotive capital. So everyone, we make cars. We believe in driving cars. So it wasn't a forefront initiative of our founding fathers and mothers to sit and create massive transportation, because that would take away the use of buying automobiles. So we're behind in that. But now it's an issue because Amazon, remember, we spent all these millions of dollars into trying to be a bidding option for Amazon to come and place in headquarters here. And so what were their major responses back to us? That A, we don't have the talent and the transportation. Wow. Did you get that? So they don't believe that we have the talent to be able to fill the jobs that Amazon needs. And then we don't have the transportation. But now you see that education was one of the major initiatives now. So now we have to revamp our educational system yet again. Haven't we consistently throughout all, we have emergency manager after emergency manager dealing with education, with taking away the powers of local powers, putting new people in, raping and pillaging the monies out of the district only to create something new again. But now we got this other plan. So now we got another plan. Okay, so I got another plan. Let me just tell you, though, I have another plan, though. I have another plan. And so this other plan now is going to afford us to be able to allocate more monies, put us in more debt. And now that's supposed to be better because we don't like that Amazon said that we don't have the talent pool. So we have to help education now. Hello, the citizens have been screaming about education. The citizens have been talking about, hello, we have to fix our school systems. We have been screaming about that. We have consistently been yelling at the top of our lungs. So my thing is, and I think a lot of you have always shared on this show, is that you break, you buy. So if you decided as a government that you were going to come in and take authority over education, authority over cities, then guess what? You need to fix it. So whose fault is it? Because if our curriculum isn't up to par, if our students aren't learning adequately, if we're not engaging in the right kinds of educational practices that are going to, of course, afford us to think and then pass and excel in grades and go to higher education so that we can be employable, then whose fault is it? Because you all have taken over the school system. So now it's our fault. So now it's the citizens' fault that you're not best educated when the government is taking over the school districts. Because we do have emergency managers, right? I know there's an emergency manager in Detroit. There's an emergency manager in Highland Park. There's an emergency manager. I mean, do you want to go state, city by city by city by city? Where emergency managers have been sitting in education and in the administrative parts of government? But now it's our fault. And so the citizens then, what? See, there's always a casualty. And so the citizens always become the casualty. So because then you want to figure out another way that you can manipulate government to create contracts, to change things, to shift the paradigm, then who always takes the brunt of it? It is the citizens. And so now we got this big slap on the wrist because Amazon, so now our egos are bruised. Because Amazon said that we're not equipped for them. We're not adequate enough for them to even consider putting us in the top 20. And so now we got to do something about it. But then we say, well, guess what? There were some news articles that alluded to the fact that, well, you know what? It didn't work for that, but we can make this model for our downtown. Did you hear that? So this is a great plan to continue the robust development in the downtown of Detroit. Yet again, and the government tried to be a little suave with it and say, oh, yeah, and then we can do a couple things in the neighborhoods. He did kind of throw that in there, the whole neighborhood thing. But They're touting the development of downtown, the arena downtown, the restaurants downtown, the growth of downtown. Even so much so now, you hear everyone's talking about changing the name of Cobo Hall. That's going to change the face of downtown. But you all know that's all just for revenue, right? So that's branding. So if I make this the Quicken Loan, the high, then they can pay a certain amount of monies to have the naming rights. Did you all get that? So the branding of Detroit has become the business of government. And so at the end of the day, who is getting a return on that investment? Because all the citizens, the monies from the people who live here are taking care of the offsets for the development and the tax abatements and all the infrastructure things and all of those things to make the downtown so pretty and so vibrant, because our tourism is up and everything is up. But none of those monies are trickling back into the communities. And then we wonder why. I'm going to give us a quote. You know I like quotes, right? And I'm going to give us a quote today because maybe that's going to help us in having an assessment of where we are right now. And so the quote says, "So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Let both sides explore what problems unite us instead of belaboring those problems that divide us." So, when the governor, and I'm going to read it to you again, and then I'm going to tell you who authored this statement. When the governor talked about the purpose of government is to create an opportunity, an environment for success. That is the role of government, to create an environment for success. So if we understand that the role of government is to create an environment of success for its citizens, then the best way that we can accomplish that is to be civil to one another, to identify each other's needs, to work to identify the resources and the funding and the overall support to meet the needs of each one of those communities so everyone will be successful. So it's not that you have a right to say, I don't deserve, I can't have. That's not even a part of the conversation. It is strictly, if I'm a representative for my community, and this is what my community needs, and the government's role is to create an environment that we are successful, then the government needs to identify the resources to meet those needs and to ensure that we are successful. Because the needs of Detroit residents are not the same as the needs of those who live in the UP. For those who are living up in Marquette and Traverse City and all those other places and Benton Harbor, you have your own set of needs. Now, some of them might mirror based on the socioeconomic dynamics and what that looks like, but everyone is unique. And so we should be in a space where we say that, wow, if the representative that we have elected and selected to be there, to do our bidding, if you will, upon this floor, upon the Senate floor, to say this is what my constituency needs, then the government needs to create an environment where the resources are there so they can take the resources back to the people so we can be successful. It's really that simple. And I believe that if we all would agree to what the governor said, that we wouldn't have the issues that we have. It wouldn't be an issue of still talking about the rights, the voting rights of people. It wouldn't be the issue of why our neighborhood's still devastated, why we don't have adequate housing, why do we not have adequate support in the day-to-day functionalities of our neighborhoods. But then you also saw that Detroit is now creating a deputy district manager position for each one of the city council districts now that's going to focus on business. So they're going to be hiring individuals then, so another person to be able to focus on being the liaison for the businesses within the district. So I thought that the district representative was supposed to be the person then that met the needs of the constituents, And so now you add someone on that's going to meet the needs of the business community, but are the needs of the constituents being met? Did you even know about that? I read the great article. Remember, reading is fundamental. Or it's so great that you can tune in to me and we can have the conversation. And so I want to give this to you yet again. So listen up. Quote, so let us begin anew. We are in 2018. And so we have talked about on this show that we are not going to look at things the way that they have been presented in the past. We're very clear that there is an injustice. We're very clear that America is what she is. And so how do we make these injustices work for us? So in us bidding anew, that we understand that the government is in position to create an environment that makes us successful, makes our endeavors successful, then what do? How do we make it successful for us? So we need to change our narrative. But let me finish with the quote because I really want us to digest this. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness. So those of you who are Republicans and so you are leading in the voting, the majority, that if you agree that there are certain things that you have done wrong in the governance and in improving legislation for the rest of the people, you can say that. It doesn't mean that it's a weakness. Let me just give you that. Let me give that to you. Even if you say, well, you didn't ask for it. That's okay. I mean, we're going to give you the pass because clearly the proof is in the pudding, even from a local level to a national level. Because the Republicans, you can't get it right amongst yourselves. So if you are running all powers of government and you still can't get it right, what types of impacts do you think it has on the rest of us? Because you still can't get it right. Now, you complained before when we had President Obama, and so everything about him was wrong, and so you're just going to fight him. And you were literally fighting him. It wasn't about his policy. It was you fighting him because we have the prejudices that we still don't want to address in our realities of America. So that's a whole nother issue. Because you can't tell me that President Trump is more astute than President Obama. And that you all don't fight him half the way that you fought President Obama. And President Trump isn't even presenting anything. We're going to talk about what actually has happened in his tenure for the last 12 months. And it really has boiled down to nothing but conversation and tweets and name calling and more social divide. It has brought nothing but chaos and dissension in our nation and even now in our international conversations. People are looking at us, laughing. They're all going to, remember that? They're all going to laugh at you. They're laughing at us right now. That you're supposed to be this great powerhouse and you people elected this guy and look at what is happening. Did you get it? So, admit that. But see, and this is going to show us when we talk about this divide, it's going to show you if they're really going to speak out against him, even in the midst of all of his dysfunction and chaos. But he's still a white man. He's still a white man in America. And so they're going to create any kind of narrative that still gives him power. Oh, maybe he's suffering from dementia, onset of Alzheimer's. Oh, he was listening to his intern. Oh, he was listening to Steve Bannon. What about he's just not equipped? Did you think about that? He's just not equipped. And then I want to say a great morning to Phil Simmons. He's his founder and CEO of Pure Recovery. We're going to have him on the show. But he sent me and I just saw it yesterday, a great message. And he wanted for us to continue the conversation about equality. And I really think that we should do that because he made a great point. In the midst of all these marches that have been happening, the Women's March and the Me Too March and the Me Too movement and the like, if all these women voted, his position was, well, wouldn't Hillary be in office if all of these women voted? And so I kind of chuckled because I said, well, we make the assumption that the women who are marching all wanted to see a woman in office and that they wanted to see Hillary in office. So we have two different conversations right there, but we're definitely going to delve more so into that. But so now all these people now that are showing a dissension for what is going on, what is that? So again, is that just the protest like we talked about before? Like last week, we had these great protests downtown, and then accompanying that was a lawsuit to talk about the non-action of putting in a special election up until November for the 13th congressional. It was both, and we talked about that's what's needed. So where are the legs and the arms to these marches that have been happening across this great nation? Because everyone is in an uproar, and I appreciate that. But then what else do we do with it? But let me get back to our quote for today. Remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. So you can sympathize, empathize with me, but the proof is what? So we hated that everything is happening in Flint the way that it is, but is it fixed? The governor kind of alluded to the water levels and the like, but the story is that you were trying to save money and you shut them off and created a new source that you hadn't even tested to see if it was efficient enough to be able to attach onto the people. And so that's how we got here in the first place. And so it's still not corrected. That's nice. It sounded good. It sounded good. That's the narrative we want you to buy into. It sounds good. And so we believe it. So, and sincerity is always subject to proof. So what's the proof? That if we want things to be really better in Flint, then we'll fix them. That's the proof, that it will be fixed. Not that we're still working on it. 3-4 years later, we're still working on it. Are you serious right now? Stop. That's not proof. But then, let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. So, a lot of us don't even negotiate. We just walk away. Because the truth is, we haven't created an action plan because we don't know what to do what after. Like, we don't have a next. So guess what? If I bring attention to the issue, then what do I do next? Well, then that means that I need to have some bargaining chips. I need to be able to say, well, we want this, and this is what we want, and this is why we want it. And then you say, okay, well, that's what negotiation. We have a compromise. We can agree to disagree and then figure out how we get to a solution. We don't just walk away. But the majority of us don't even negotiate. We don't even get to the point where we negotiate. We just talk. And I know you might not like that, but the truth is that's who we are. We talk a good game, and we just talk and talk and talk and talk. But we don't hold the people accountable to be able to create a legislation and create the policies that are going to change for us. We just don't. And maybe the truth of the admittance is that we just really don't know how. And if we don't know how, I need us to say that so we can get better and so that we can know and learn what to do versus just talking about it. So, again, but let us never fear to negotiate. So, A, you need to be in the room to negotiate, and while you're there, negotiate. There's always going to be a compromise. Everyone always has an agenda, but you should know what it is that you're fighting for so then you can create the conversation that gets the outcome. I was having a conversation with a young man the other day, and he said, Collette, you know something about everything, and so, I mean, why? Why do you feel that you have to know something about everything? And I said, well, he who has the information controls the conversation. So, I might not know electrical engineering. I might not know as much about electrical engineering as an electrical engineer does, but I need to know enough about it to be able to have my position and take the conversation where I want it to go. The problem with us is we don't even study to show ourselves approved to be able to have any kinds of conversation about anything that's important to us. How's that? Because if that were the case, if it weren't the case, then we constantly wouldn't keep looking for these people to save us and have these answers for us. We would then know what we need and hold these elected officials accountable for what we need. And if they are presenting plans and policy that are in agreement to what we need, so be it. More power to all of us collectively. But if they're talking about the same old, this is very serious. We are in election season yet again. You have a lot of municipal elections coming up this year. I believe you have a Wayne County Commissioner election coming up this year. Of course, we're going to have the governor election coming up. Of course, we're going to have everything else that's coming up. I mean, hello? What does that look like for you? We're getting ready to fill. We're going to fill. I mean, we're already, just might as well say, we're already in February. Before you know it, it's going to be time to vote. You're going to be looking at filling the seat for the congressional seat that Conyers had. And these local municipalities for their city council members and for the Wayne County Commissioner seats and the like. So you better know. You have enough time now to know what it is that you want them to do. And if you don't know, you have enough time to know what that position can actually do. Not dealing with candidates anymore that give you sound bites. Not that they can sit and tell you, oh, yes, I can eradicate insurance and I can do all this and I'm going to fight for insurance. And the position that you're running for has nothing to do with insurance. That's what we're going to do. You know what? I'm not even going to leave it to you. That's how we do as a team. I will identify all of the elective positions that are coming up this year, and I am going to, based on the charters that govern each one of those positions, I'm going to read what each one of those duties and responsibilities are for these individuals that are going to be vying for your vote. So we will have the conversations and we will all be educated on what their actual roles and responsibilities are. So when they come to you to your block club meetings and to your town hall meetings, and when they come to your churches and doing the wave and asking for your vote, and when they come to you giving you chicken dinners and giving you ice cream, then you will say, okay, this is good, but by the way, what are you going to do about this unfinished jail? What are you going to do about the $300+ million that we're still on the hook for this jail? Are you just going to give it to Dan Gilbert? What are we doing with that? How's that? Can you do that? I'm just asking. Like, you're going to know. You're going to have the information. You're going to have the tools so you are equipped to be able to negotiate. So that's what happens. When someone asks something of you, they're asking for your vote. They're asking for you to entrust in them that they can sit up and best represent you. And so you have the right to say, well, you know what? If you want my vote, let me ask you this. Are you willing to fight this way for me? What alliances do you have? What does it look like for you? What is your opinion about the governor, the relationship between the governor and the mayor and the county executive? Shouldn't you know what that looks like? Do you believe that they should all be working in tandem? And it should be based on the conversations about what's best for the citizens? Or is it the backroom, backdoor conversations in which deals are made and then they present it to you and then the deal's already done and you're asking what happened and no one knows about it? For the simple fact that now Governor Snyder is in a lame duck situation, and so all the things that he talked about that he wanted to accomplish, if he'll even be able to accomplish them. Because he's in a situation right now. Do we even understand what that means? But if we didn't know, now we're going to know. I'm going to make sure that you know. Because this is us. This is a new space that we're walking into so that we will not fear to negotiate. And furthermore, let both sides explore what problems unite us. Did you get that? Both of us. If this is indeed the human race, what do we have to do? We want all of humanity, all of our citizenry to be educated. We want all of our citizenry to have adequate needs, adequate supplies for what we need. We want good food. We want good drinking water. We want great education. We want great and fair housing. We want great, fair, and adequate employment. These are all the things that keep us, those are our commonalities. Everyone should have that, not at the expense of the other. So why do I have a problem with the dreamers here? Aren't we all dreamers? Didn't everyone come? For those of you all came, because those of us who are already here and born here. But for everybody else that came over here, wasn't it a dream? You came to America. Your families came to America to live out a dream. And so who am I to say that you don't deserve this dream? Or that the only way you can accomplish this dream is if you do this, that, and the other. And the this, that, and the other doesn't necessarily have to do with what is constitutionally bound. It's based on who I believe makes a better society. No. So you're saying, okay, well, guess what? You don't want people that can come from those countries. You all know what he said. from those countries where black and brown and tan people reside. But you want them for more of those Norwegian countries. Are you sure that's what you want? I think that's really interesting. And then you have to understand the narrative of why. Let me just put that out there. Did anyone question why he would be so adamant about Haiti? First thing, Haiti. Well, Haiti was the first place to rebel against slavery. Beat the French out. How's that? And so since that day, since that uprising, everything has been awash for our support to Haiti, because we don't want to support a civilization and a people who realize that they have rights and they're going to work together to fight being oppressed in their own country. Did you ever think about that? No one ever talks about why we just have this issue with Haiti. Because you're dealing with black and brown people who said, no, you are not going to come in here and take over us. And we will fight you and we will kill you, and that's what we did. So now you have been holding us hostage and penalizing us ever since. So you're not only going to ruin our names and our branding, you're not going to give support. You're going to sit and then create alliances with other entities that could have resources for us and then fight for our independence and our functionality because we realize that we had a voice and we're going to fight for it. So of course you're not going to fight for Haiti and other countries, because we want you to feel that as long as you were free, then that's what you get. That's the price you got for being free. So now you have to suffer. That's who we are. You might not like it, but that's the truth. And so the more that you understand the truth, then you can say, okay, so again, all these people that we're trying to negotiate with, you can understand what the motivation is, because again, if you don't know what motivates them, you don't have an understanding of what motivates you. Because remember, we were all taught by them. So unless you have some new thought, unless you were doing some things on your own, some independent thinking, all you're doing is regurgitating the information that they gave you. All we're doing is regurgitating the ideologies that they gave us. And so if we ever just take a minute and slow down and look at why we believe what we believe, why we do what we do, why we're more oppressive to each other, people of color, than they are, it's because that is what we have been indoctrinated with. Just think about it. And then the truth about all of it is, then the beauty, if you will, is that they have us divided because we believe that it's about color based on what say, but it's about class. It's all about class. The people who live in Appalachia, they don't live better than the people who are dealing with in urban America. And the issues are still the same. Adequate employment, housing, food, resources, health care. It's all the same. And for one moment, if you would just remove yourself from all the rhetoric, as Noam Chomsky says, it's what they say. If you could just sit back 1 second and have a different lens, then you'll say, oh, you're right. Well, we're more alike than we are different. And then that's a camaraderie that you can have and what you create to change a system. But they keep us so inundated with everything else that blocks us from realizing that we're more alike than we are different. And the reason why they do that, the powers that be, so they can control. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about control. So as long as they can consistently control us, they can control our narrative, they can control our actions, they can control our consumption, they can control our spending patterns, then we'll never be cohesive. And they can always divide and conquer. And so let us finish this quote. But let both sides explore what problems unite us instead of belaboring those problems which divide us. The truth is, I don't really understand the problems that divide us. What actually really divides us? Have you thought about that? What actually divides us? When are we divided? We're divided when we have to fight for fairness. We're divided when we have to, because, but as the Patriot always says, we're Americans. Why are we fighting for something that's our right? We shouldn't even be having that conversation. But we got to sit up here and fight. I have to fight for you to say, okay, well, I shouldn't have to go through voting. I'm still having to renew this Voting Rights Act. We're still having that conversation. We still have to talk about fair and equitable education in our schools. Hello? Those aren't things that should divide us. Every person should have decent housing, affordable housing. Everyone should have decent and affordable food, resources, decent and affordable transportation and transportation options. I mean, can we go on and on? Adequate, decent, fair representation, employment, child care, water. So what really divides us? Because those are all the things that we all are supposed to have, that are common to all of us. So what divides us is based on what we're told divides us. It's based on how we look at a narrative. So if the narrative is that you have all of these people who are illegals coming into this United States and they're going to take the jobs from you. And so we can't make America great again for those who are Americans if we're constantly letting people come in here who aren't Americans and they're going to take the jobs. Do you realize that? So that conversation switches the narrative. And so for those of people who are dying in communities that have no other industry, coal mining is to boot, and there's nothing else that developed that industry, of course they're going to fall into that because they have to have something and someone to blame. And so their position is, yes, they're going to come and take the jobs. But the truth is there's no new industry up in West Virginia. So what new industry did your elected officials make for you? None. They're still telling you that they're going to get coal mining jobs back. They haven't created a new industry. They're not bidding to get new opportunities there. I didn't hear anyone trying to get Amazon to come up to Appalachia. So it's the powers that be that aren't creating the opportunities to change the narrative. And because you're so mired in where you are right now, in the dysfunction of where you are, you can't take care of yourself, you don't have the resources that you need, then you can't look at it in a clear lens. And so that's the division, because that keeps the platform going, because that keeps the hatred going. So that's where the civility comes in. Because the truth is, we can talk about all the issues. I can tell you all about the highlights. I can tell you about the 45, 75,000 plus jobs and all these different things that the governor stated in his state of address. I can give you all of those specifics. I don't even know if you would care. Because the truth is, the bigger conversation is that if we don't understand and make people accountable for what civility. That was if I didn't have any other takeaway in the state of the state, it was the importance of the truth of civility and the definition of government. And so if we change our narrative so that we are not hostile, that we don't keep having the conversations about what they're not giving us, then what if we just say, you know what? I agree to everything that you have presented to the table because, yes, adequate education, we need that. Mobility, we need that. Transportation, we need that. Civility, we need that. Go back to the 6 points. Fiscal responsibility, we need that. So I agree. We agree to all of those 6 areas and then some. And now we need to talk about how that resonates itself in urban communities. That's it. So you don't have a push from me. I'm not fighting you on those things. I'm shaping the conversation as to how you make that work in our community. Just as you are going to make it work in Farmington. You all saw the clip that Time Magazine did a review, and they said that the best place to live was Farmington in Michigan, that Farmington was the best place to live. And so they're trying to have some kind of dialogue of, well, Farmington versus Farmington Hills. And they said, oh, well, no, we all accepted Farmington. And so for those of us in these communities that aren't boasting those things, then you say, well, guess what? I don't have to fight you for that mantra. I just want my community to be equivalent to what you have in your community. I want a thriving downtown district, and I want an equal thriving neighborhood. I want thriving school systems, and I want equal thriving resources for employment, for housing. Isn't that how we get things done? So in our civility, we realize that, hey, I'm tired. What I'm asking for is what you have and what we should all have. So we shift the narrative, okay? Because ultimately we want to get what we want. We wanted, as we talked about, that march on Washington in August of 1963, in which we asked for equality and freedom and jobs. And so because all of that is here, then for us it needs to be the best way to get it, to attain it. And so I'm asking us in our narrative to understand that, guess what? The conversation is to our civility, knowing what we want, and all we have to do is use what they have as a model and compare it to what we don't have. So we already have the model. Be in a space to be able to negotiate, and then understand and reiterate and regurgitate to them that it's your understanding that the role of government is to provide an environment in which we are successful. And those are the words from our own governor. So I believe that we have something up today. Those are my takeaways from the State of the State address. I hope that you're able to think about it. I hope that you're able to listen and agree that in the midst of all the things of these key areas, we can have all of those things, but we have to understand and make government accountable for our successes in creating an environment that allows us to be successful, and that we cannot be fearful. And we have to communicate. But we communicate by knowing what we want. And we understand what people can do for us in the roles that we have selected and elected them for. And we hold them accountable for that. And then if indeed that they don't do that, then we remove them and we keep on going, but we still are moving on the other track on our own. It is just not a one train, one trick pony. We're still doing us. We have to consistently do us. No matter what they have going on, we're still doing us. It doesn't stop us. We're still having the conversations, still working for it, still moving towards our goals. We don't live in that fear because we can do anything we put our minds to. So as we open this wonderful conversation on today, I asked you all to look in a spirit of gratitude, to accomplish and attack this day with a newness, one like you've never had before, because today is a new day, filled with infinite possibilities. And so know that you can make this environment one of success for you. You have to know what it is that you desire, know how to get it, negotiate for it, learn how to communicate, and realize that what you're asking for is no different than what we all are asking for. And these are our inalienable rights. So it's been a pleasure. Our time is up. I look forward to us again revisiting this tomorrow. I'm going to sprinkle in a couple of other things because you know that's what I do, because we know that there's more than one way to have a conversation. And so I look forward to that tomorrow morning. Friday, bright and early, I will be here at 7 a.m. I hope that you will be as well. Continue to make today amazing, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.